Hello and welcome to this pre-recorded event for GCSE RS Unit 4, Religion and Life Based on a Study of Islam. To help you get the most out of this feedback, you may want to have the following documents handy, as we will refer to them during the session. A copy of pages 24 to 27 of the current specification, and pages 111 and 112, the glossary of terms. A copy of the 2015 question paper and the accompanying mark scheme, which can be downloaded from the Edexcel website. The report on the 2015 paper by the Principal Examiner, which can be downloaded from Results Plus. It would be worth pausing this presentation to access these documents, if you have not already done so. By the end of this session, you should have a clearer understanding of how the paper was marked, and how best to help your students reach even higher standards. All the question papers in this specification follow the same format. It can be a valuable exercise to look at this with your students, so that they know what to expect when they sit the examination. The paper is divided into 4 parts, each based on one section of the specification. Look at pages 24 to 27 of the specification, and compare it with the examination paper. Students should be told to limit their answers in each part to the relevant material for that section. The format for each question is the same throughout the paper. It will have 4 parts, A, B, C, and D. Candidates who achieve the highest marks are clearly familiar with this and develop the skills to use information in the correct way to answer each part of the question. Look at the different types of question on this slide. So, when answering A items, they use the glossary definition and do not waste time writing more than is necessary. In B items, they clarify their opinion by starting their answer with I think, because, and then go on to develop 2 clear reasons for their opinion. In C items, they ascertain whether the question is asking for reasons why, explaining how, or whether it requires a detailed explanation of something. Part D of each question has 2 parts, Part 1 and Part 2. In Part 1, they should start with either I agree or I disagree, and then give the reasons for their opinion. And in Part 2, they should give the opposite point of view supported by reasons. In the following slides, we will look at these in more detail, so that you can see how candidates gained or lost marks on the 2015 examination. We will begin with the A items. On pages 111 and 112 of the specification, you will find each key word with its definition. Each A item is worth 2 marks, and in the mark scheme, there are at least 2 full mark definitions which correspond to the glossary, and also 1 partially correct answer. Look at the glossary in more detail. It is generally possible to identify key elements in the definition. Each definition contains two elements, whether in the definition itself or sometimes in the explanatory bracket that follows it. Both should be referred to in an answer. The examiner will be looking for both elements. Alternative wording can be found in the mark scheme. Although time-consuming, it is worth going through each key word and its glossary meaning to identify exactly what are the important elements. Here is a clear example of a candidate who knows what is meant by prayer, 2A, and so gets 2 marks. Another example in Section 2. Voluntary euthanasia means ending life painlessly when someone in great pain asks for it. This glossary wording shows that in order to get 2 marks, it is necessary to include ending life painlessly and when someone asks for it. Some candidates lost marks by confusing key words, especially in 3A, by only writing, for example, ending life painlessly, or helping to end someone's life. There are other examples in the mark scheme. These answers were only partially correct, so could only be awarded 1 mark. The candidates who achieved the best marks always gave a clear response to the question, either by using the glossary definition, which can be found on pages 111 and 112 of the specification on the Edexcel Pearson website, or by using an alternative wording which demonstrated their knowledge. B items are slightly more complex, because they expect candidates to use their knowledge to show understanding of a topic. Always remind your students that no marks are awarded unless there is a clear personal opinion indicated by "I think." In this example, the candidate has started with "Yes, I do think," thus showing that it is their opinion. Candidates who did not clearly indicate that it was their opinion did not receive any marks. This statement is then followed by 2 reasons, both of which are developed. This is an example of a good B answer, which received full marks. Development is not a random statement or another reason, but must link to the question and to the reason already given. The difference between a basic reason and development of a reason is clearly shown in this example. Find the example on page 9 of the Principal Examiner's report. In this next example, the candidate gives 2 reasons. 1. It helps people. 2. It gives them faith and hope. Neither reason is developed. so 2 marks. In this example, the candidate has not fully understood what is meant by a multi-ethnic society. The candidate confused faith with ethnicity. To obtain full marks, 2 developed reasons should be given in support of their opinion. Candidates who discussed why people disagreed with their opinion in B questions gained no marks for doing so. Activity 1 is for you to mark the example given. It would be best to pause here, award a mark, and then go on to the next slide to evaluate your own performance. This shows you how and where the marks were awarded. Did you agree? Analyze any differences. Try this with your students so that they can see the difference between development and just adding another reason. You could use it to explain how development must link to both the question and the reason. Some candidates lost marks on B questions because they gave one reason and then fully developed it, without giving a second reason, even though 2 reasons are clearly asked for. It would be a valuable exercise to go through this list with your students. This year, the C items were answered really well. Candidates generally understood the difference between explain why and explain how. Not all questions lend themselves to giving 4 reasons why or 4 ways how as an answer. Many candidates only gave 2 reasons, but developed them both, so also gained the full 8 marks. Some candidates were able to give 1 reason, which they developed so fully that they also gained 8 marks. The mark scheme indicates quite clearly the different ways full marks can be gained on C items. This answer to 8C gives 3 good reasons why interfaith marriages could cause problems, and develops the last reason with an example, so gains full marks. Read the response to 7C on page 50 of the Principal Examiner's report. It is important that candidates read the question carefully to ascertain exactly what is being asked. Some candidates, especially in the last section, when they appeared to be short of time, gave bullet point answers, which gave no indication that they were in fact answering a question about community cohesion. This is a good example of an answer to 3C. Again, it could be useful to go through these with your students. D items expect a candidate to evaluate a statement and then give reasons for opinions on both sides of an argument. In answering D Part 1, candidates must state whether they agree with the statement or disagree with the statement, and then give the reasons for their opinion. Candidates who write, for example, "Muslims agree with this statement because," but do not indicate that this is also their view, will not be credited, as D Part 1 is about their opinion. It is D Part 2 that gives them the opportunity to give an opposite viewpoint. Find question 4D on this year's question paper. Pause the recording and attempt activity 2. How did you get on? The most common mistakes candidates made were when they disagreed with the statement and then got confused in D Part 2, where they needed to show opinions opposite to theirs, which should have agreed with the statement. When they misunderstood the question. For example, in 4D, many candidates did not realize that the question was about whether abortion should always be allowed. Remember that candidates have about 20 minutes to answer all 4 parts of a question, so probably would not be able to spend more than 8 minutes on this item. The best candidates were those who had clearly practiced writing answers to questions, so did not waste time writing unnecessary information. Pause the presentation and try marking this next example of 4D Part 1 . Pause the presentation and try marking this next example of 4D Part 2. This is a full mark answer. In answering D questions, candidates should reflect on religious ideas and teaching, develop their ideas, and evaluate other opinions and attitudes, using their knowledge to support their views. The examiner was not judging their opinion, but looking for reasons that supported it. Again, it is worth discussing this with candidates so that they can analyse their performance and improve. Activity 3 is on page 58 of the Principal Examiner's report. These next 2 slides show you how the marks were awarded. Remind candidates that there must be an Islamic response in at least one part of the answer. This can be a reference to the Quran or Muhammad, as well as any specifically Muslim concepts. Many candidates use a formula to help them answer the D questions. The remaining slides are suggestions to help you. The summary on page 63 of the Principal Examiner's report gives some useful tips and comments to help your students improve their performance.